My dear friends, welcome to this webinar. The College of Social Work, Nirmala Niketan Autonomous, Mumbai, in collaboration with Holy Trinity Powai Unit of Bombay Catholic Sabha, Mumbai has organized this webinar, as I just mentioned a while back, on the topic upholding human rights. You and the community can make it happen. Yes, you can make it happen and also make a difference. This has been organized in the context of Human Rights Day. And I think all of us are well aware that Human Rights Day is on the 10th of December. And this year, the theme for Human Rights Day is Recover Better, Stand Up for Human Rights. And as you know, this theme is relating to COVID-19 pandemic, and it focuses on the need to build better backup, or rather a better backup by ensuring human rights are central to recovery efforts. We will try our common global goals only if we are able to create equal opportunities for all, address the failures exposed and exploited by COVID-19, and apply human rights standards to tackle entrenched, systematic, and intergenerational inequalities, exclusion, and discrimination. And under UN human rights, this is a call to stand up for human rights. And you will notice, my dear friends, if you have read the introductory note, which I'm sure all of you all have received, it says stand up for human rights. The UN Assembly aims to engage the general public, our partners, and the UN family to bolster transformative action and showcase practical and inspirational examples that can contribute to better recovering and fostering more resilient and just societies. So this is the background. I'd like to just place it in the context of Human Rights Day. And I think just to lead you a little systematically into what are the questions that are in our mind. What is human rights? I'm not going to answer this. Ms. Greta Castellino, one of our speakers today, will focus on this point, okay? And then we have many other questions like, what is the status currently of human rights? How are we experiencing this right now, despite the fact that many press and media houses have not really given us the true picture? But sadly, often we get messages through technology like WhatsApp and other messages that filters the truth. Our speakers will give us insights into many of these issues that are being raised. Many issues faced like tribals, religious minorities, okay? Yes, and also what we need to see is what are the other questions that are being raised? Can it be taken up to levels like the state, national and international level, where Dr. Vaishali will focus her sharing on? Then there is another last question that we're looking at is how does a common citizen like you and me, who are participants as students, as community leaders, take steps to ensure that human rights can be upheld? So we have our speakers, Mr. Gopal Kotier and Mr. Sitaram Shelar, who will share their rich experience of dealing with human rights issues emerging from the community. As I was speaking to you, actually, I was opening up the objectives of the webinar to you. And this webinar clearly focuses on the three objectives, which I'm sure you have read while you signed up for the webinar. Okay, the three are contextualizing the growing understanding of human rights abuse in various situations emerging in our local communities, to understand how individuals in local communities can respond and mobilize their strengths to raise issues. And the third is how do we network with like-minded individuals, groups, and organizations who can address human rights concerns. Okay, I'd just like to end with before I invite the next, before I request Dr. Lidwin to address us, I'd like to just end with a beautiful quote by Kofi Annan, who says, "The right to development is the measure of the respect of all other human rights." That should be our aim, a situation in which all individuals are enabled to maximize their potential and to contribute to the evolution of a society as a whole. this was quoted by Kofi Annan.
बात करने
Okay, requesting the some of the people to kindly mute yourselves. Okay, yeah. So I now request Dr. Lidwin, the principal of College of Social Work Nirmala Niketan, to now address us as being the partner of this webinar. Dr. Lidwin.
Thank you, Cletus. On the onset, I would like to thank the Bombay Catholic Sabha for inviting us, College of Social Work, to be partners in this webinar. Respected dignitaries, speakers, and all my dear participants, a very warm welcome to each one of you to this webinar. Cletus has already given us the background to this webinar and also has set the objectives. College of Social Work Nirmala Niketan is very happy to partner with Bombay Catholic Sabha, the Holy Trinity unit, on this webinar, which is very practical workshop on upholding human rights. You and the community can make it happen. Let me begin by sharing a little about the College of Social Work Nirmala Niketan, and I'm sure most of you must be knowing us, the college. The College of Social Work was founded in 1955 by the Daughters of the Heart of Mary, whose charism is to readily respond to the felt needs of the people according to the signs of the time. Initially, the college just offered a diploma in social work in 1965 till it got affiliated to the University of Mumbai, and later on the BSW and the MSW courses got affiliated. In 1995, we also got recognized as the Catholic Christian Minority Institute. We have at present a strength of almost 500 students ranging from various courses, bachelor's, master's, PhD to the short-term courses. The college also has got the national accreditation by the NAC, and in all the 3 cycles we were able to get the highest grade. And in 2015 we got 3.53 on 4 and A grade up to 2022. We are happy to also say that the college also has been conferred with an autonomous status from 2019, and in 2020 we have ranked in the NIRF, that is the National Institutional Ranking Framework, as 62nd rank in India and first in Mumbai. Since our college lays a very importance on the ethical practices and the principles of professional social work in working with individuals, families, groups, communities, as a college also we have a vision and mission that has made us to contribute to build a new social order based on human dignity and social justice, and work with a preferential option for the vulnerable and exploited both locally and globally. On our part, we have engaged in a process of building young and competent professionals who have a very strong value base and skills that can actually build the community to be empowered and stand up for the rights and entitlements. I was indeed happy to note the work undertaken by the Bombay Catholic Sabha to enter into the civic and political space by engaging with building communities where human rights can be upheld. Yes, this workshop will bring in fresh perspectives on how we as community leaders, academicians, and students can work with like-minded individuals, groups, and organizations to promote human rights that are upheld in the framework of the Constitution of India. I'm happy to listen to the speakers. Some of them are known to me and to the college, and we had them in our campus several times, like Dr. Vaishali, Mr. Dolphy, and Sitaram. And also looking forward to listen to the other speakers whom I have not heard, who have a wealth of their professional experience. The need of the hour is definitely to understand how we can uphold human rights and take a stand with the individuals, groups, and communities. Wishing you all a fruitful learning from the experiences shared today by our experts. I end with a quote by the UN Women Executive Director, PM Niguka, who aptly said, our hopes for a more just, safe, and peaceful world can only be achieved when there is a universal respect for the inherent dignity and equal rights of all members of the human family. Thank you and all the best.
Thank you, Dr. Lidwin. It was really a pleasure to listen to you as you put into perspective how beautifully College of Social Work can be a partner to the process along with Bombay Catholic Sabha and actually working together on many things that we can see that's happening in our communities. And we certainly will look forward, ma'am, to this beautiful networking that can actually happen in the most beautiful way. I now invite Advocate Raphael to address the webinar participants on behalf of the Bombay Catholic Sabha. Advocate Raphael.
Thank you, Cletus.
Yes. Yes, Advocate. Yeah.
Yeah, the organizers of today's webinar, Holy Trinity Powai Unit of the Bombay Catholic Sabha, the College of Social Works, Nirmala Niketan, your boards and managements, the principal office bearers of the Bombay Catholic Sabha, specifically the Deanery Councillor, Dr. Maria Ashirvadan, and the Guardian Vice President, Robert D'Souza, distinguished speakers of today, Ms. Greta Castellino, Dr. Vaishali Patil, Mr. Gopal Kotiyar, and Mr. Sitaraman Shelar, and my participants, and in that, the moderator for today, our past president, the current spokesperson of the Bombay Catholic Sabha, Dolphy D'Souza. The Bombay Catholic Sabha, which has the vision to create a just society through involvement in social, civic, and political affairs, is an organization which is just about 31 years old, spread over the entire diocesan territory of Bombay, has representations over 75 parishes with about 61,500 members spread across the diocese. Our endeavor and the motto is to build a better tomorrow today. The last 8 months have been a period of challenge for the entire world, and India is not out of the bracket. Ever since the lockdown was announced and imposed, we have had a great challenge of being supportive to the migrants. And the Bombay Catholic Sabha, true to its mission, came forward to assist more than 6,000 families through our various units. Today, we are observing this webinar in observance of the Human Rights Day on the 10th of December. Apart from the rich knowledge and experience that the speakers would tell us and educate us, I think basically as a person, I would suggest, or what is required amongst us is that we stop being hypocrites. And hypocrisy, I also include indifference and being an onlooker. The day individually each one of us decide that we should be the good Samaritan, as in the Bible, I think the question of whether we should have a webinar on human rights will cease to exist. The day all of us learn to share and experience in the joy of giving, we would have lived the objective of the human rights. And according to me, if we find somebody who does not have and we willingly share with him, that is the day I think social, civic, economic, and cultural barriers will end, and we would really build a better world to live in. With this, I once again congratulate the Holy Trinity unit of the Bombay Catholic Sabha and the College of Social Work Nirmala Niketan, led by its principal, Dr. Lidwin Dias, and the chairperson of Holy Trinity unit, Mohan Sikwera, for coming together and organizing this webinar. Let us listen to these wonderful speakers, but decide among ourselves that I am going to be the one who is going to follow it. Because if I am not, it would be useless to be present for this webinar. Thank you very much and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Raphael, sir. It was really good to listen to you as you beautifully put the point out, like we could be hypocrites if we are not able to get onto the field like a good Samaritan and actually show it in action. Thank you, sir. And just before I hand over to Mr. Dolphy D'Souza, I just request Mr. Mohan Sikwera, the chairperson of BCS Holy Trinity Unit, the main partner in this webinar, to please address the participants. Thank you, Mr. Mohan. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I apologize first of all because there's some technical problem in my PC. Anyway, thank you for joining me. On behalf of the Holy Trinity Power Unit of the Bombay Catholic Sabha, I welcome each one of you to the webinar. We are very privileged to have this very important subject, human rights, as it is indeed the need of the hour. The objective of this program itself, in the title mentioned, upholding human rights. You and the community can make it happen. Speaks of the need of the uphold human rights for the dignity, justice, peace, hope, freedom, equality, the rule of the law, and the prosperity of each individual in the community. Each one of us have to stand up and express ourselves. And of course, we have to fight when there is an injustice or crisis arises. We have to awaken in ourselves and the community our constitutional right. Looking forward to hearing from this sharing and working in collaboration with the College of social work, Nirmala Niketan, and join with you and speakers and the participant. My best wishes for a learning experience through this webinar. Thank you,
Thank
all
you.
of you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mohan sir, that it was very nice, your words. And you rightly said, just as the UN would put it, we need to stand up and be counted in. Thank you, Mohan sir. I now hand over the proceedings of this webinar to Mr. Dolphy D'Souza, who has been the past president of the Bombay Catholic Sabha and also will lead us into the reflection process along with the main speakers today. So over to you, Mr. Dolphy.
One of the most, am I audible, please?
Yes, very much. Yes.
One of the most powerful statements of Martin Luther King Jr., and that has been my motto, is injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And I think it's very auspicious today that College of Social Work, Nirmala Niketan, and the Sabha unit of Powai have organized this event in the light of the Human Rights Day on December 10th. My BCS president, Rafael, Dr. Lidwin Dias, the principal of College of Social Work, Mohan Sikwera, the chairperson of the Powai unit, Joseph De Costa, co-host from Powai unit of the Sabha, Robert D'Souza, our vice president, Dr. Maria, the deanery counselor, very eminent speakers today, some of whom I have worked very, very closely over a period of several years. Professor Ms. Greta Castellino, Dr. Vaishali Patil-Tai, Mr. Gopal Kotiar, and my also dear friend Sitaram Shelar, Sabayats, students of the College of Social Work, and activists. I think it's a momentous decision in terms of having this event. And I must recall what our friend Mohan Sikwera said, that due to technical reasons, I could not join the event in the earlier phase, but I must emphasize that we can't have technical reasons not to be out on the streets to agitate. The webinars are a good event to be very, very comfortable, very cozy, but we have seen on the road the fight of the farmers, and it's important for us, besides several other fights that we have, we need to also support that particular fight because it's a life and death situation for all of us. Having said that, it's very interesting that in our country, at this present moment, in the present dispensation, nobody talks about human rights of human beings. Here, animals are more privileged. In fact, one animal is more privileged than all of us put together. And I must tell you this, that it begins very small, and there's a story told about a frog. That if you put a frog, and many of you must have heard it, when you put a frog in boiling water, it jumps out. But when you put a frog and keep the flame very, very low, the frog feels the warmth of that water, and before it realizes when it becomes hot, it can't jump out, it gets killed. This is very important for us, the history of what really happened, beginning with small things which we began not to protest, including talking about beef eating to begin with, We kept quiet on it, and today, instead of that 1 inch, we have lost 9 inches. But I must re-emphasize this point. Any government that comes in does not talk about human rights because they don't like dissent. Look at the earlier UPA government, all the laws that they introduced, which actually violated our rights, we kept quiet. And those same laws are being implemented vigorously by the present dispensation. So it's ultimately individuals, collectives like you and us, need to fight to ensure that the democracy remains intact and our rights remain intact. Having said this, let's listen to the eminent speakers. The speakers must have been told that we have a restricted time of 12 minutes of presentation at the outset, because we want more interaction in terms of the participants. So I would not like to interrupt, but I'd like you to stick to your time. And Cletus, can you introduce the speakers? Or Joseph is introducing the speakers?
Yeah, I'll do that. Hello. Yeah. So I'd like to introduce the first speaker, Ms. Greta Castellino, who's been serving as the Assistant Professor of Political Science and Hindi Vidya Prachar Committee. Hello, can you unmute yourself?
Tell her how to explain it.
She has been a honorary teacher assistant in the Department of Political Science, St. Xavier's College, Autonomous, since the year 2013. She's also a part-time consultant facilitator since 2016 in the Career Ready program of Anantrag Foundation that strives to make youth self-reliant by bridging the gap between education and employment. Greta, can you start by telling us about the human rights and the basics of human rights?
Before Professor Greta speaks,
Over to you, Greta.
Yeah, before Professor Greta speaks, may I request all the participants, including others, to mute their mics, Thank you.
Hi,
Greta, I sent you a request to unmute yourself. Yeah, okay.
I've shared my screen as well. I hope you all can see it. Thank you so much, Joseph, for that introduction. I'm truly humbled to be one of the speakers for the day and share this online space with so many esteemed persons. Thank you, Cletus, for inviting me to be a part of this event. My topic, as stated in the schedule, is going to be limited to human rights and the Indian Constitution. I will only set the context for the evening of learning, reflection, deliberation, and hopefully some strong action points which we can move forward with. So as you can see on the screen, I'm going to be beginning the my speech here by tracing the origin of rights in the post-World War II era, when the third world countries were gaining independence and adopting a democratic form of government. The traumatic events of the Second World War brought home that human rights are not always universally respected. The extermination of 7 million people during the Holocaust, which included 6 million Jews, horrified the entire world. So after the war, governments worldwide made a concerted effort to foster international peace and prevent conflict. So this resulted in the establishment of the United Nations in June 1945. The UN Charter was adopted then, and in its first article, which states the purposes of the UN, we learn that one of its purposes is to achieve international cooperation in solving international problems of an economic, social, cultural, or humanitarian character, and in promoting and encouraging respect for human rights and for fundamental freedoms for all without distinction as to race, sex, language, or religion. So in 1948, we see that representatives of 50 member states of the UN come together.
Greta, can you just make your screen bigger? Because the participants have mentioned to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure how it happens, but if it can be done. Yeah, okay. I think it's come somewhat bigger.
Oh, I
Yeah.
will be sharing the PPT with you. You
Okay.
could
Yeah,
also
yeah,
share
yeah.
it with them later. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Greta.
Right. Yeah. So in 1948, representatives of several nations came together under Eleanor Roosevelt to devise this list of human rights which you see on the screen. So what's special about UDHR? For the first time, it laid down that fundamental human rights need to be universally protected. Since its adoption in 1948, it has inspired the constitutions of many newly independent states and many democracies, including our own. The UDHR, together with the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, form what we call the International Bill of Human Rights. So it marked an important shift now that human beings are all free and equal, regardless of color, creed, or religion. And there was a global agreement to put human beings and not power politics at the heart of its agenda. So now if we have to look at how the UN defines human rights, the Office of the High Commissioner defines human rights as moral principles or norms that describe certain standards of human behavior and are regularly protected in municipal and international law. So let me just insert here a quote by Harold Lasky. He's one of the political commentators, has authored over 20 books, and this is his often quoted definition of rights, which states rights are those conditions of social life without which no man can seek in general to be himself at his best. So several inferences can be drawn from this short definition. He calls rights as conditions of social life. In fact, it's a social concept deeply connected with social life. Uh, he places rights, individuals, and the state on the same flank, which cannot be separated from one another, which means that there should be no antagonism between them. So Harold Lasky endorses a long cherished view that states have a very important role to play in the realization and recognition of human rights. So what's the role of the state? Lasky, by his definition, establishes what we call a legal theory of rights. I'm not going to go deeply into the theory, but the central theme is that uh, rights completely depend on institutions and recognition by the state. So an individual cannot claim rights if they're not recognized by the state. So mere recognition is not sufficient for exercising rights. The state must also create institutions to implement these rights actively. So these two conditions are necessary for people to enjoy rights or human rights. But this theory, of course, is not devoid of criticism. Uh, we need to remember here that states recognize rights. It does not mean that states create rights. So what we are understanding here is rights existed prior to the state. The validity of rights is not derived only by its recognition. And now let me narrow it down further to the Indian Constitution. So rights in India have its origin in many sources, from the England's Bill of Rights, from the United States Bill of Rights, from the French Declaration of Rights of Man. Uh, while each of these countries created specific documents to enlist their rights, India was maybe a step further during its freedom due to the social reformers and social activism during the 20th century. We already had our fundamental rights as an integral part of the Constitution in Part 3. So now let me make a clarification here. While we are talking about human rights which are universal and without any limitation, in contrast, fundamental rights exist within a specific legal system. Within also, there are certain limitations that the law grants. Therefore, the concept of fundamental rights prevails in state laws. So, fundamental right is a right that the Constitution creates, but that's the tool that will also help us to enjoy our fundamental rights. So the Indian Constitution has 6 different types of fundamental rights in Part 3, which is Article 12 to Article 35. So I have just mentioned here the broad types. Due to paucity of time, I'm not going to dig into each of them. But what we need to understand here is that each of these rights have certain expanded interpretations as well, which have been done by the judiciary over so many years. To the right to freedoms, we have certain reasonable restrictions which are also enlisted, which are also carved out in the laws and policies that we have in our country. Um, the last one, which is called the heart and soul of the Constitution by B.R. Ambedkar, which is the right to constitutional remedies, allows any individual or group whose rights are violated to approach the Supreme Court directly. Right. So let me just change the slide. So this is an excerpt from a report which was published by the United States Department of State. You might call it a report on the pot calling the kettle black, but this is about India. When you read this, it's appalling to look at the amount of human rights violations that takes place in our country. Beyond this, there are reports of actual human rights violations that have taken place, which also are quite disturbing to the first-time reader. But I can definitely share this entire report with all of you later. You can also find it online for that matter. So, when we read this, we should remember the legal theory of rights which Harold Laski had stated. He said that there needs to be an institutions that protect rights. So in the absence of institutions that protect rights, all the rights that are recognized by the state will not be effective. Here is a little political theory on the protection of rights. So the way that our country functions is drawing laws from the Constitution. So Article 21 of the Constitution protects the right to life and liberty except by the procedure established by law. तो अगर एक लॉ है which says that अगर आपने चोरी किया तो आपको 5 साल imprisonment मिलेगा, and then other law which says अगर आपने murder किया तो आपको 5 साल imprisonment ही मिलेगा. Now if the parliament is making such a law, then by default the institution, maybe the police system, will have to follow will have to implement or execute the same law, which means that they are following the procedure which is established by law. But our constitution is silent about the principles of fairness and justice, which says that the procedure should not be arbitrary. Now this was adopted later on in principle by the makers of the constitution and also imposed by the judiciary through judicial review. So it's an American principle, but also now implemented in the Indian legislative system. And together it's called the due process of law, which can enable the rule of law as stated by Mohan Sikwera in the beginning. But here, when we're looking at this principle of fairness and justice, we have looked at a lot of laws in the past few years and also mentioned by Mr. Dolphy D'Souza. And I would like to mention a few examples here. One was, of course, the farm bills, which have got our farmers to the streets and so many people rooting for farmers. We have the Prevention of Terrorism Act, which was repealed and then replaced by another draconian law called the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. We also have the AFSPA, which is the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. We have the Public Safety Act. We have TADA, we have the Land Acquisition Act, because the right to livelihood here is an expanded version of the right to life, but that is also violated under the Land Acquisition Act, even though the right to property is not a fundamental right anymore. And we have the National Security Act as well, and lots of atrocities have taken place through the implementation of such laws. So just to repeat what Dolphy, sorry. just to repeat what Dolphy said, we cannot have technical reasons to not come out on the streets, but the government more often than not uses technical grounds that creates field breakers to justice. So in order to ensure that fundamental rights are protected in our country, there is a statutory body called the National Human Rights Commission established in 93. I'm not going to go into the role and the functions for want of time again. Yeah, non-governmental institutions or organizations are created to bridge the gap between aspirations of the public and the performance of the government. So when draconian laws silence vigilance groups and muzzle the press, we rely on international agencies to aid victims and prevent further violation of rights. I'd just like to divert a little here. When Alexei Navalny, the Russian opposition leader, was being treated in Germany due to the nerve agent poisoning, at the 95th Executive Council of the Organization for Prohibition of Chemical Weapons session, the ambassador from India, Venu Rajmoni, said India takes note of the alleged poisoning of Alexei Navalny and subsequent events are unclear. Now, regardless of the party in power, holding double standards has been the hallmark of Indian diplomacy. So on this topic, there is an excellent article written by A.G. Noorani in the Hindu's Frontline in October 9th edition. It's titled India's Double Standards on Human Rights, Violations at Home, even as its diplomacy preaches liberty. I think we should all read this article to get a little more clarity on how India as a country portrays itself differently on the world stage. And here you see a quote by the Acting Secretary General of Amnesty International, Julie Verhaar, which says, sadly, this enormously important work, standing up for victims, has been met with heavy-handed tactics that the Indian civil society has become increasingly familiar with, part of the government's drive to silence critical voices and stoke a climate of fear. And this was also titled as the witch hunt of the Indian government against people who are striving to gain civil liberties and guarantee fundamental rights in our country. Very sadly, the Amnesty International, one of the bodies that does vigilance work in different parts of the world to uphold human rights, halted all its operations in India in September 2020, from the government of India. I would like to end on this note here because I'm sure the other speakers will enrich us more on the status of upholding civil rights in the country. Thank you.
Professor Greta, thank you so much for sticking to your time. We really appreciate that. And I think it was really a brilliant exposition in terms of understanding the basic tenets of human rights. And as we rightly say, in today's context in India, I would be not out of place to say they arrested us for defending human rights. You look at Father Stan, or you look at Arun Ferreira, you look at Vernon Gonsalves, you look at Sudha Bharadwaj, naming a very few people, but there are a host of intellectuals and dissenters who love our country, but they have been treated as anti-nationals.
Right, we face that in the academic circles as well, with universities being the new target.
Absolutely. Having said that, you did raise the institutions which are supposed to be watchdogs for human rights. But tragically, all the institutions that are there as watchdogs have become lapdogs for the government. And that's a very unfortunate situation. So whether it's the National Human Rights Commission, whether it's the State Human Rights Commission, the less said, the better. It's important for us to call attention to ensure that these institutions function to the best of their ability. And I think participants who are present here must play a very decisive role, because one person is a majority when it comes to raising its voice. You don't need a crowd. So it's an appeal, and I thank you, Professor Greta, for enlightening it. And maybe we should have more engagements to understand also the aspects of our constitution, which are very, very important for us to articulate and then support in terms of its effective implementation. Having said that, Cletus, can we have the second speaker?
Yes, I think Joseph will introduce us. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Regarding the second speaker, I think you normally we know the friends that we keep them. We are known by that. So who are your friends? Let me introduce you to this person who is known by the friends that she keeps. She is known as just Tai or Vaishali Tai. She has been actively working among the Katkari tribals and marginalized sections of the society in Konkan region, especially in Raigad district for the last 27 years. A PhD in tribal women and land rights. A founder of 3 NGOs which works with tribal orphans and the field of medical charity. And I will hand over the mic to Vaishali Tai now. Vaishali, can you unmute yourself?
Before Vaishali Tai speaks, I want to give an indicator to the panel speakers so there is not embarrassment that I will come on the camera at the time of completion of shortfall of 2 minutes. So when I come in, that means you have to wind up within those 2 minutes. It will make things easier for all of us. Tai, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So Greta, thank you very much for giving a very nice and brief background about the human rights. This is a background. And all of us, we know our constitution. What our constitution says about the fundamental right as human rights, everybody knows about it. And we have been really quite aware of it, studying everything. But in spite of that, if we see certain statistics in our country, so from last 8 days, there are lakhs and lakhs of people, farmers, they are on the street. And in many more percentage of the farmers and agricultural laborers are supporting them from their own village. In 1960, in our country, like today, 80% of the population depended on the agricultural land. But among those 80%, 60% of the population owned land. They were small and marginalized farmers. And 40% of them were landless laborers. If you see the statistics of 2020, you would find only 30% of the farmers own the land and 70% of them are landless laborers. So, in one side we see Ambani, Adani are becoming like the first richest people in the world, like among the 10 families. And the other side we see that in 2019, more than 10,000 farmers committed suicide. And if you see the last statistics of just 2001 till 2019, the number is in lakhs. The lakhs of the farmers committed suicide. And this number is actually bigger, larger than the people who really gave their life for the freedom struggle. And this is a contradiction. And precisely for that, once I remember, we had Father James Mascarina, who used to conduct some small workshops for the women. And then he talked about all the 6 fundamental rights and the human rights and the gender equality. And the next day, our Naushiban came And she said, त्या भाऊने जाम मस्त सांगितलं मानव अधिकाराबद्दल. सगळ्यांना हाय, तो आदिवासी असो की बिगर आदिवासी असो, हक्क सगळ्यांना हाय. बाई असो की बापे असो, हक्क सगळ्यांना आहे. पण मी घरी गेलं आणि उशिरा का आला म्हणून माझ्या नवऱ्याने जाम कुठला, मला मारला. पण माझा मी म्हटलं नाही, हा माझा मानवी अधिकार आहे. दिस इज माय ह्युमन राईट and I must go and file a complaint. And she says she went to the Pen police station and told the Havaldar. The Havaldar asked her, काय झालं बाई, एवढे संध्याकाळची आली? So she said, नवऱ्याने जाम मुस्काट्यात मारली. ये बघा इथं तोंड सुजलाय. म्हणल्या एवढंच ना, उद्याला ये, कम टुमॉरो. she said, नाही नाही नाही, जाम मारली, जाम शिव्या देतोय, घरामध्ये घेत नाहीये, तुम्ही केस लिहून घ्या. अँड देन ही सेड, अगं बाई, राग आला, माणूस संतापानं घरी आला तर मी पण माझ्या बायकोला एक दोन थोबाडीत मारतो म्हणून काय ती पोलीस स्टेशनात येते वय केस द्यायला, जा घरी. सो ह्युमन राईट्स कशासोबत खातात हे जगणाऱ्यांना कळत, हे कष्टकऱ्यांना कळत. And no wonder, if we really see the percentage of the people, the migrant workers in our country, from how their number has grown from 2001 till now. If you just see in 2001, that is after privatization, globalization, the process when it started in 90s and 92, the impact of it in 2001, that 120 million population was the migrant population in our country. Among them, 20% of them were domestic workers, 11 million people were the textile workers, 10 million were the clean workers. And still, after the lockdown, during the pandemic, it is well put before the parliament also by the ministers that they do not have a real statistics how many migrant workers really died on the way. And still, our government comes out with the new law where the farmer cannot survive. The small and marginalized farmer is forced to sell his land. He has already sold the land. But even the worker in organized sector cannot survive the way the laws have been enacted. So as Naushibai says, हे मानवी हक्क ऐकायला बरं वाटतं, पण मानवी हक्क मिळवणं आणि मानवी हक्क घेऊन जगणं खूप कठीण आहे. And this is seen in each and every struggle at the grassroots. I am in pain, and we have been working from last 28 years. So in pain, when Mukesh Ambani wanted to do special economic zone, the first time in the history of the state, a government started the land acquisition for the private company. And that too, 35,000 acres of land. And that was compulsory land acquisition. And the farmers had to struggle against it. Farmers struggled. We made government to take a referendum. In the referendum, the farmers said, we don't want special economic zone, we want special agriculture. And I still remember when Medhatai had come, and many Katkari women came here. And when the Katkari women came, one of the English electronic media just asked them, आप लोग इधर कहाँ किस लिए आए? And that Katkari lady was unable to say, मोर्चा है ना, ताई ने बोलो म्हणून आले. So he thought there is something that I can show. How people don't know why they have come, but still they have come to protest against the sales, Mukesh Ambani. Then he said, आपका जमीन है? The Kashmiri women said, नहीं माझी जमीन नहीं, आमच्या नहीं. He said, आपके नाम पे जमीन है, आपकी जमीन सेज में जा रही है. He said, no, 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 आमची जमीन नहीं जाता, आम्ही डोंगरावर राहतो. And he said, if your land is not going in the acquisition, you are not even the landowner. And why did you come into this anti-sales movement? आप इधर किस लिए आए? You know that Shevanti Wagmare had a very simple answer. He said, आम्ही आदिवासी आहोत, कातकरी, आमच्याकडे जमीन नाही. पण आम्ही फॉरेस्टची जमीन करतो. आणि म्हणून आम्ही बोर्ड घेऊन आलोय, सेसचा कायदा रद्द करा, फॉरेस्टचा कायदा अंमलात आणा. आणि त्या जमिनी अजून आमच्या नावावर झाल्या. Then again he said, but Ambani is not taking your upland, which you are owning, which you don't even have title. And unfortunately, after Forest Act enactment also after 2006, her claim is still pending. She never got a recognition for that particular land. So she said, नाही, पण खालची आगरी आहे ना, ज्यांची जमीन जाते. तर ह्या आगऱ्यांकडं जेव्हा लावणी होते आणि कापणीपर्यंत जेव्हा होते, तेव्हा लावणी आणि कापणी झाल्यानंतर त्या मधल्या काळामध्ये हे सगळी गुरं आमच्याकडे ठेवतात वर. तर त्यांची नांगरणी झाल्यानंतर आम्ही वरती नांगरणी करतो, कारण की त्यांची गुरं वरती आहेत. त्यांच्याकडे जमीन नाही राहिल्या तर गुरं राहतील, आणि त्यांच्याकडे गुरं नाही राहिले तर आमची जमीन राहील, आम्हाला करता येईल वरती. देन सेकंड थिंग शी सेड दॅट ड्युरिंग दिस ट्रान्सप्लांटिंग सीझन सगळे जनावरे जी आहेत ती वरती धनगरांकडे राहतात, ठाकरांकडे राहतात, कातकऱ्यांकडे राहतात. अँड दॅट्स द मनी वॉट एव्हर दे हॅव, द विमेन हॅव गॉट ऍक्सेस ऑन दॅट मिल्क अँड द मिल्क प्रोड्यूस. ते खवा करतात आणि विकतात, आणि त्या 3 महिन्याच्या काळामध्ये डोंगरामध्ये सोडलेले जे जनावर असतात ती त्यांची कमाई. अँड देन शी सेड, आम्ही जंगलातनं लाकडं घेऊन जातो. बेकरीवाल्याने आम्हाला एका भाऱ्याला 200 रुपये दिले तरी आम्ही देत नाही, कारण की या कोळ्याला, या आगऱ्याला जर आम्ही हा भारा दिला ना तर हे एवढं माप भरून आम्हाला सुकत मिळत, आणि म्हणून आम्ही तो देतो. अँड देन शी सेड, एवढं फुलपात्र भरून जांभूळ दिला तर तेवढंच आम्हाला 10 पटीने आम्हाला मीठ ते देतात, मिठागरातले आम्ही. So in short, she tried telling her that English electronic media wala, that if their land goes, त्यांची जमीन गेली तर त्यांना थोडंफार पैसे तरी मिळतील, पण त्यांची जमीन गेली तर डोंगरावरचे ठाकर, कातकरी, धनगर उपाशी मारतात. कारण की आम्हाला ना जमीन, ना आम्हाला कॉम्पन्सेशन, ना आम्हाला काही, तर त्या कंपनीमध्ये त्यांची जमीन गेली तर उपासमार मात्र आमची. So this whole dependency in the agriculture land and in the agriculture sector has been there from generation. But with this privatization, with this globalization, and with this whole model of development, what is happening, that lakhs of the farmers are compelled to commit suicide. And they cannot survive in this so-called developmental model. So the real violation is in the structure of the developmental model. हे विकासाचं प्रारूप जे आहे हेच मानवी हक्कांचं उल्लंघन करणारं आहे, हे शोषण करणारं आहे, आणि हे असमानता निर्माण करणार आहे. आणि म्हणून आमच्या देशात लॉकडाऊन असो, लॉकडाऊन मध्ये आम्हाला दिसतंय आणि लॉकडाऊन नंतर आम्हाला दिसतंय भाकरीचा आकार कमी होतोय, खाणाऱ्यांची संख्या कमी. अँड द क्वेश्चन इज, भाकरीचा आकार कमी झाला तर कोणाच्या तोंडाचा घास हिरावला जाणार. अँड जस्ट नो लिटेस्ट सर जस्ट शोड फ्यू पिक्चर्स, आणि त्या जनसुनावणीमध्ये लोकांनी म्हटलं होतं की ज्यांच्या तोंडाची भाकरी खेचल्या जाणार, हिसकावल्या जाणार, ते सगळे असंघटित कामगार आहे, सीमांत शेतकरी आहे, शेतमजूर आहे, आणि महिला त्याच्यामध्ये आहे. आणि जोपर्यंत विकासाचं प्रारूप हे लोककेंद्रित बनत नाही तोपर्यंत ह्या देशामध्ये, ह्या जगामध्ये मानवी हक्कांचे लढे हे जिवंत ठेवण्याशिवाय दुसरे पर्याय नाही. देर इज नो अदर ऑप्शन दॅन टू कम आउट ऑन द स्ट्रीट. देर इज नो अदर ऑप्शन दॅन टू फाईट. अँड देर इज नो अदर ऑप्शन than to struggle for the equality. And the root is in globalization, privatization, and liberalization. Thank you very much.
वैशाली ताई, आम्ही तुमचे आभार आहोत की तुम्ही इथले संक्षिप्तमध्ये आपले प्रेझेंटेशन तुम्ही आम्हाला सांगितलं विथ फॅक्ट्स अँड फिगर्स. ताई, तुम्हाला मी आठवण देऊ इच्छितो की 2008, मला तारीख आठवते, 15 मार्च 2008, तुम्ही आमचे कीनोट स्पीकर होते, ज्यावेळी आम्ही एक प्रोटेस्ट बॉम्बे कॅथलिक सभानी आणि अन्य ऑर्गनायझेशन केलं होतं मुंबई आझाद मैदानवर. 15 मार्च 2008 मध्ये आपली संघर्ष जी गोराय स्पेशल एंटरटेनमेंट झोन होती एसएल वर्ल्डचा, त्याच्या अगेन्स्ट आम्ही धरणा केलं होतं आणि 50,000 लोक जमा झाले होते आणि तुम्ही आमचे कीनोट स्पीकर होते. धन्यवाद की त्या संघर्षानंतर स्पेशल इकॉनॉमिक झोन गोरायमध्ये स्क्रॅप झाला होता. हे तुम्ही जे बोलतात हे तुम्ही जे बोलतात ते स्पष्ट आहे. सबाइट्स अँड स्टुडंट्स ऑफ College of Social Work, unless these are opportunities which we can do, unless we are out on the streets in thousands. We have seen what has happened in terms of the farmers thing. It's not a battle only of the farmers, it's our survival too. And what Tai is giving us a message is that we need to stand with every single oppressed person to make that difference, to ensure that this government does not take us for a ride. Having said that, I would request Joe to introduce the next speaker, please.
Yeah, thanks, Dolphy. The next speaker we have is Mr. Gopal Kotiar, who is currently the National Vice President of Mass India NGO, Mahiti Seva Samiti, Bangalore. He has completed LLB and Social Welfare Diploma. He has been in the social field for the last 55 years. Worked as a trade union leader for hotel workers' rights, where he has introduced employee state insurance schemes, provident fund, and minimum wages. He has fought the 1340 tenements to get possession from the Maharashtra Housing Board in 1978. A lot of such work that he has done. I'll now ask Mr. Gopal Kotiar to please speak and give his inputs.
Good evening. All the speakers of the Mumbai Catholic Samaj. I am talking on behalf of Mass India regarding human rights. I am in the fighting for human rights for the last 55 years. I had seen as a boy in hotel as a cleaner. That time, our Setti community used to slap on our body to get up 4 o'clock. If we are not doing, they used to put a hot water. All these things I had seen. Thereafter, I fight for the hotel worker to get a social justice. In that, I observed many of the human rights violations. Today also same condition in India. The reason we do not know. Basically, our human rights are not understood by the capitalists, or today we call it as a industrial development, or a political version, or a caste-based. Today, every human rights are counted on say caste, religious basis, which is against to the law of the nature. Every individual is born and he got every right to live on this earth. That is called as a human rights. But we educated people, we are not able to understand. The God has created us with certain aims. Every individual has to live and do his work and get his income and survive. Even if we go to the Bible or your Christian thing or Quran or anything, And even in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has made it very clear. Every born creature, every individual is got a right to survive in the earth. And all his work, whatever is done, bad or good, on his it will give the faith. Today I will tell you, I am working for the welfare of the people and fighting for the human rights of the people. So last 2 months, one apartment having 180 rich IT industry people. There I told them at least 2 ladies you keep for a work as a security guard. What North Indian people said, अरे औरत को क्यों काम में रखने का, वो क्या करेगी? Then I told, what about you? Your wife is working in industrial industries as IT people, and because she has not learned, and then they only started sexual abuse to her when I fought. Then they said, you are anti-national, anti-see, this is our present situation. Our educated people are main responsible to treat us as a, when we are fighting for human rights, they said you are anti-national, anti-social element, all things are created by our IT engineers. This is, I am not going to accept it. And today I am fighting for a ESI, social security of the employees. This is a basic thing of a human beings. See, when we are fighting for a social service or human rights, our all, see basically whatever our constitution given a full freedom under the section 17 of the act. And there are the 6 as a mandate to everybody. Today, we are creating a children. Then they are living on the street. They are going for a begging. In that also some mafias are there. They bring them, hamper them, then put for a begging, which we are fighting, then your life will be ending. These all things, we are abusing our human rights. Therefore, only I can tell this, every individual must understand our Bible, Bhagavad Gita, Quran, that it is very clearly made. Every born creature are a human beings, they must got a right to survive and right to live in this society. Therefore, in this occasion, I will tell every person must fight for their right that is given by our constitution. Not only that, if we refer to the UNO, it has made it very clear worldwide. See, human rights is a great thing where they must get their right, personal liberty, everything. Even Quran, COVID-19, he has taken our entire rights. Some of the political heroes, some of the policemen, one who has not got a positive, they are admitted in as a positive, then looted the money. These are violation of the freedom. Therefore, I appeal on this issue. We must fight for our justice, our human being, every creature or every human being born in this earth, he got a right to survive and practice his own thing and earn his livelihood. But in that, nobody should violate. And if we are violating, his human rights will be taken away by the capitalist or a globalization or industrialization or anything. But see, if we refer, even our Acharya Vinoba Bhave once he made, when you develop the people in an interior place, particularly a village, then you are going up with this great standard. Today we are violating everything. Farmers are not given their dues. Laborers are not given their leaves. Ladies are not respected. Children are not respected. Education is not given to them. All these are coming in a 21st century. It is really sad thing whether it is a government or all we are responsible for all these things. I only appeal on this occasion to all the people. We must fight for our right, and every human being got a right of his own, and a fundamental right cannot be violated by any of the police or a DC or a minister, MLA or anybody. It is our right to survive our own land. Their religion, caste, never think. God never made that you are Christian, you are Muslim, Hindu. He are created a human beings. So when we are born as a human being, we must practice the human rights. That is the only we can survive. Every human got his own right, and you should not violate and we should not insult. This is only I can say. In in this seminar. And thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk. I will glad and I will keep my word to save human being in this earth. I will fight till to the death to get their dignity. Thank you very much.
First of all, Mr. Gopal, thank you. You spoke less than the assigned time given to you. We appreciate that. We deeply appreciate your personal sharing of your own experience, which led you to what you are today in terms of your commitment on the campaign for human rights, and we really salute you for that. You are right in saying world over, including India, governments have used COVID to actually violate our human rights, because create a scare and then let people not come out on the roads to agitate or threaten them with arrest. And it's important for you, before the next speaker comes in, I read a very interesting quote of the then President Ronald Reagan, the US President, which he remarked, that the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I am from the government and I'm here to help. And you must understand this, that all governments, including the present dispensation, talk really of being with us, but everything that they do is against the ordinary individual citizen. Rule for those minority, as Vaishali Tai very clearly said, for those few who want to corner all the resources of this country, and we must not allow this to happen. So thank you, Mr. Gopal, for your simple insights. And I think for our friends who are listening, it's important for us that you don't need to be a PhD, you don't need to be a real vocal person, you don't need to be a public speaker. What you need to be is come out in your simple way, take a stand, and work together in unity. Joseph, the next speaker, please.
The next, our last speaker for the day is Mr. Sitaram Chelar, who is among many things a water rights activist. He is a Mumbai convener of the Maharashtra Committee for the People-Centric Water Policy. This committee has influenced the state's priorities of water supply. He is founder, convener of Pani Hak Samiti, which brought about the landmark judgment on linking right to water to right to life. He has actively campaigned and initiated advocacy for children's rights, water, housing, and participatory governance. He is active in the People's Campaign, Hamara Shahar, Mumbai, on the development plan of Mumbai 2014 to 2034, which has negotiated with the government the people-centered development plan of the city. He is also a founding member and managing center for Sitaram Chelar. Please give us your inputs.
Zindabad to all of you. So basically, many speakers already quoted a background that what is a human right and how it's actually people are pursuing about it, and how the states, the governments are pursuing about it, and what are the politics are happening around it, and what kind of exploratory policies are initiated by the government, and what is the contract between the citizens as the people and the government are there. So what is the social contract and how that social contracts are now changing, and I think that is it really very depressing kind of a scenario. So I must say that here is Dolphy is here, Vaishali Tai is here, and many these people are like these people are the inspiration for people like me. So why? Because it's a basic instinct of every human being that I am having my freedom. I will do my decisions about my life. That is right. And most of us are believing in a community. That's why means many psychologists are saying that human being is a social animal because we believe in a community. So this is how it happens. I think that that's why the importance of communities are really important. Means to understand. Most of the times, uh, there is a mechanism clearly employed and deployed in a vast scale to manufacture our minds, and they are most of the times creating the consent of our minds that okay, you may say that okay, these Adivasis tribals, they want to be poor, they don't want to get educated, and that's why they are not educated, they don't want to get educated, and they are lazy, and they don't want to get more progressive kind of initiatives. That's why they are backward. So this is one imagination, and then there is a one social stigma is evolved in the society that okay, really, that is actually the tribals are like this. These social stigmas, like caste, like religion, like gender, there are thousands of social stigmas are created, manufactured, and then social means as a part of that society, where most of the times agree to that kind of blunders or what we can say that the imaginations created by some people for their profit. I think most of the times we also not believe in a human rights. There are 2-3 examples I'll give. One is that we say when we started working a decade ago, we were fighting against the privatization of water supply in Mumbai. And most of the organizations come together, we fought, and we not only fought, we had police cases and all that, but we have a very good collaboration. And that collaboration, not only activists, the people, the citizens, the societies, the cooperative housing societies, the community housing residential group, and the experts from IIT, experts from internal engineers association and unions. So all these combination make really solid argument against the privatization of water supply in 2009. And then municipal corporation uh, turn their plan and say that okay, we are not going to privatize the water supply. And then the people who were engaged in the whole struggle, they started asking one question. Then we are raising that okay, the water supply is not privatized, but still we are not having water in our household. So my family is still fetching water from outside, and we are not having official connections. Then why we are not having official connections? Then there is a emerged need by the people, and with all of us living in the communities decided that
we have this issue, the administration, and then administration is actually the Mazdoor Union, the Engineers Association, who were there with shoulder to shoulder with us for fighting the privatization of water supply. They started ignoring us. They said, okay, we can't give water to. Then these engineers and the administration started giving clear-cut technical answers like these people are having some issues and these people are not eligible to get access to the formal water supply. And then we said that why we are not having that access. Then they given that okay, your houses are not built before 1st January 1995. Your houses are on the railways land, on the forest land, on the central government land, on the private land, at the seashore, and on the hilltop. So any reason they are giving and then denying the water supply. You are living on the pavements. So these are the reasons given by the authorities, and then we challenged them. We said that okay, this is not really good, because this is India, and we are the believers like that water is a life, and we are actually uh, believe that a person who, however, whatever he do in his life and go to Gange and then wash himself, so all his sins will go away, and even the giving a water to the thirsty person is a great divine work you are giving. So that kind of a philosophy of ours, then how actually you can say that we can't give water to all? Then they said, no, no, this is very technical. This is okay. This is very technical, and you should talk to the upper authorities. So we talked to the commissioners. We wrote to the commissioners. They were not agree. Then we wrote to the many other authorities like mayors and all that. Even we wrote to the State Human Rights Commission and the other National Human Rights Commission. Human Rights Commission wrote to the municipal corporation stating that okay, give water to all, and corporation said we are not adhering to your suggestions. So our human rights commissions are not having any authority to direct.
So yeah, so I was explaining that we approached to the many administrations, the policymakers. They denied the any justice, and then we approached to the judiciary, and finally judiciary also was very reluctant. And then we asserted, because Mihir Desai was our advocate in that case, and he clearly said that if you don't want to give water as a human right, just write it down, and I am going to the Supreme Court. Then they said that okay, wait, we will rethink about it. And then in 2014 we got a judgment that water is a human right, and it's a fundamental right as per the Constitution, right to life, and it's a precondition to the right to life, and that's we got the judgment. But getting judgment is not really solving the problem. Then what they were started delaying the process, that they are the court directed them, the municipal corporation, that they should give water to all, and they come with the water to all policy in 2 months. They took 2 years to discuss that, and after that 2 years still they don't want to finalize that policy, and then we have to again started the agitation, like so what we decided from all the communities, then we extend our reach to many more communities, and from the 64 communities, around 3,000 people on the one day, they came up with the water they are using at their home, in a bottle, in a tank, whatever they can travel with. And finally, that was known as the Pani Pilao Abhiyan. So one application later to the commissioner that I am drinking this water, and I am here with this water. Please taste this water and then say that you don't want to give me a water supply. Then this whole media havoc was come, and then on that same day they prepare a policy called Water for All policy. But again, that policy was not really great policy, but with some hurdles. But we started working with the communities, and then what realized that, then that was, I'm coming to the concluding remark, that there is two things. One is the policymakers, I mean the bureaucrats and the political party activists and the leaders, they force people to believe that they are illegal in this city. They don't have any right over any resources in the city. And challenging that right and that mentality, because people feel that they are the slaves and they are illegal in this city. And that's why they believe that when we approach to this extending to new communities, the people were telling us that we don't have any rights, we are illegal, go, we don't want water. And they have many threats like that, like now we are getting at least informal water supply on the very exploitative rates, but still we will not get that after we are approaching for a formal water supply. We will we will not get the electricity, informal electricity. So they are getting from night 8 p.m. to 12 p.m. 12 in the night electricity. They will not get that. So this is whole the dependency and havoc created around, and that's why then people started believing they don't have any rights, and fighting to that understanding with the people and convincing them that we are having a right in an urban setup. It's really challenging. I'm totally in agreement that in a rural setup the people are much aware that this is their land, this is their water, this is their air. But in a cities, people are losing that confidence over their rights. And recreating that confidence is one challenge that we have. Actually, Panihat Samiti's last 4 years, from 2016 to 20 now, we are working clearly creating this kind of understanding in urban settings, urban communities. And till now, around 6,000 families approached the municipal corporation for a water supply, and 1,000 families already having access to the water supply. But it's a start. It's a start of getting some responses. I think we need to make it more spread or more quantum. I'm just I know Dolphy, I already crossed the limit, but last 1 minute I'll request is that consent, that why the people like educated middle class are thinking about the communities in the city. They think that these are the bootleggers, they are the illegal encroachers, these are the people who are many of them are discriminating them on the basis of the caste. Like these are the Jaibim Wala people, these are the Siddharth Nagar people. Some people discriminating on the religion, like these are the Muslim minorities, these are the Bauddha people, these are the OBCs on the caste, and then on the language also, these are not Maharashtrians, these are not Marathi speaking, these are, if they are Muslim minorities, then they are actually the Bangladeshis directly. So this is the mindset of even a middle class. I think that is the challenge, that we need to understand that human rights, all human rights are all humans. That we must believe. Creating that belief, I think that is the huge challenge before us. And that's why to defend the human rights, like Bob Marley says that get up, stand up for your rights. Don't give up the fight. So we can't give up the fight. We don't have an option to give up the fight. And I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Sitaram, because you've been a veteran campaigner on the several concerns, including ground level campaign on the water issue. Sitaram is also closely working together as core committee members for the People's Union for Civil Rights in Maharashtra. So thank you, Sitaram, for your fight at the ground level. And I think those are examples, friends, that whether it's a fight which Sita only fights with the people there for water there, or we also join in because we have plenty of water that we receive. It's important for us to understand the difference is that those who are privileged must work with the underprivileged very closely to ensure that they also become privileged like us. Having said that, technically we were supposed to wind up our session at 6:30. So can I have the indulgence of the participants and also the panel speakers, maybe for another 10 or 12 minutes, if people have any questions or comments. We would like you to speak about it. If possible, do speak about how you can be a human rights defender, and in what way you can work together. Some of the concerns you already heard, but there are several other concerns even Sabha has been involved in over a period of so many years. So the floor is open. You want to comment? You could. Cletus, are you there? Or put it in the chat box for questions. But
Yes.
yeah, do comment if you want to make a statement. You make a statement how you're going to contribute to this whole aspect of the human rights campaign. Restrict yourself to not more than 1 minute so that we have more people speaking about it. We have at the moment around 27 on the list. We would like as many voices as possible to speak. And as I said, this webinar doesn't end with us just listening to the eminent speakers and their experiences, but how do we extend it to the communities and the underprivileged and marginalized sections? Let's work together. Yeah, floor is yours. Please ask. Would also like voices from the students who are also participating. You have brilliant ideas, so please share. Don't worry about the comment whether it's right or wrong. Right or wrong, but we are here to listen to you.
We got a knowledge about regarding Universal Declaration and about human rights and how it is important.
I just want to provoke you. I remember my late Father Hugh Fonseca, who was my mentor and my guide. He once in his homily said that those who sit on the fence will have their pants torn. It's important for us that we need to comment either this way or that way, but just speak what you feel we need to do as participants here, both from the Sabha as well as from the College of Social Work and others. Given the insights that eminent speakers have given us, practically all of them have given us insights. Or how are you going to contribute to being a human rights defender? Yes, Mohan, you want to say? Please say.
Yeah, I am Elaine DeCosta speaking.
Hi, Elaine. Please go ahead. We can't hear you, Elaine. Please speak.
Can there any place that you see a human rights charter? What are rights?
We can't hear you clearly. Just your voice is breaking. Yeah, repeat again.
Yeah, is there any place that we can view the human rights charter?
Greta, would you like to answer that? Yeah, you'll have to unmute yourself, Greta. Yeah.
Yeah, just navigating between windows. Yeah, the UN website does have the charter. In fact, there are a few other websites which also simplify those and break it down into more understandable language if you wish to read it. I could also share across a few documents that I have regarding the same. But the UN website and the High Commissioner's Office wala tab is like the most informative in this regard.
Thanks, Greta.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Maybe we can have one or two sessions, interventions, Cletus and Joe, then we can wind up.
You know, Dolphy, it raise up some points that we as in the capacities that we hold in our different offices and in our work situations. I think each of us who are here present, whether we are students, academicians, or whatever capacity you're working in, all have sufficient kind of reasons why we are here. We are here because we are not here to fulfill a duty. You know, there is a certain thing called, I think, and this stems from the whole understanding of how we see our rights and duties. You know, so it is just not fulfilling an obligation, but we are here because we are concerned. There are concerns that are rising in society, and we have probably are aware, but we want to close our eyes. And how do we move from just mere awareness to taking it to the next step and action? So action would be the final step, but that in-between step is where people, or rather where most of us falter and say, how do we move from awareness to action? But what about that in-between step? That is where is that that transition, as I can think of, is where all people who join webinars or even who are reflecting, thinking. The very fact that we are here, that means we are thinking. And we are at least looking at, certain issues in society. But how do we make this transition is, I think, what we can talk about. Therefore, a little bit earlier, I said also is that probably are we in a process of looking at a new freedom struggle. I remember once watching a TEDx talk, and where the speaker spoke about today, probably should we go down to basic communities, like we are all part of the Bombay Catholic Sabha or basic communities where we live. How do we operationalize those communities into thought, circles that think on issues and actually work out action plans? So otherwise we will get stuck in beautiful sermons given at the churches, or wherever you go, where you hear on the webinars. But how do we translate that into action? I think that link is something that we could talk about. Anybody would like to respond?
Yeah, I think Greta, you want to say something?
I was just thinking in terms of like a proper action point. Where are we heading now? So just after hearing Dr. Vaishali, it brought to mind how the police system is supposed to be the first go-to place while your rights are violated, and then they have such an attitude. So besides just police reforms, how is the Bombay Catholic Sabha or the social work college interacting with people in the prisons, except visiting them once in a year? Um, this is in order to serve two purposes: not to meet the police, only to meet the prisoners. One is to meet people who have actually been offenders and maybe bring about a reformative side of them than just a retributive punishment. And the second thing is, uh, while being in the prisons, they probably face a lot of human rights violations. So, trying to touch both of these together, what can the Bombay Catholic Sabha and the College of Social Work and all of us take steps to interact with offenders and bring about that change?
Thank you for your suggestions, Greta.
Can I say something?
Also, anybody else before I like to conclude, and then
Vaishali is speaking.
yeah, please, Tai, please go.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the opportunity. What I feel is there is a small decision that I will not bear anybody's human violation. That is the first thing. Like, for example, when any migrant workers or tribal who comes to our office, NGO's office, Sangatan's office, he says, माझ्याकडे रेशन कार्ड नाही, आधार कार्ड नाही. So she comes with her problem, that she doesn't have ration card, she doesn't have Aadhaar card, and she doesn't have any documents of residence, a proof which is required for all this. So she comes with her issue. And as we are helping out for her to get her legal documents like ration card, Jatita Dakla, whatever, house tax, Garpatti and all that, all that, she starts participating, visiting in our campaigns and in our protests. And this is the way she gets also aware about right to food. She gets aware about her human rights. She gets aware about her constitutional rights. And then she becomes part and parcel of our social movement. So first, one very important thing is to raise this in whatever way we can. Either by signing the petition online, or going and just being in the protest, or supporting who is doing this protest, or at least contributing 100 rupees for such kind of a movement. So that is a small action I can think of. And that would really give a lot of stress to all human rights movements.
A good point, Vaishali Tai. Absolutely right. You are absolutely right to connect in terms of how do we reach to vulnerable sections to approach us. While each of us might, or the organization might be not be competent in those subjects, but there are networks that are there who are willing to help. For instance, I'm involved in a network called the City Core Group, which is working on access to justice for women at police stations, where we are networked with different communities and organizations to work together to ensure that gender violence and access at the police stations is much better off. So those events are there, and we are coming out with also a directory of service providers, particularly in this particular aspect. Similarly, there are institutions that do specific work. For instance, on Pani issues, we have Sitaram Shelar, Tai is there in terms of ground level campaigns. So we have organizations. The only question is how do we network and work together? Very, very important. At our individual level, it might not be easy. There are institutions where you could refer them to for guidance, for help, and that is what we need to do. What Tai is trying to mention is, if anybody approaches you for a issue and you are not competent to handle it, you cannot drive away that particular person, but you connect that person to somebody who can be able to redress and help that person. I think even if you do that simple thing in today's world, even if you Google and find out, there are listing of institutions that are able to help you out in specific aspects. So whether there's a rationing committee that is there that helps out. So important, I think the Sabha and the College of Social Work must work out in terms of listing service providers, where when people come to you and approach you at even at the ground level, you are able to connect them. Okay, we can work together. That's not an issue. Finally, I must say this, and I must appeal to the participants today, that I don't know whether you have any time observed a tortoise. You know, a tortoise, many of you must have heard about this, but a tortoise can only move to the next destination when it brings its neck out. Now that's a risk for the tortoise, because when the tortoise brings a neck out, somebody can really cut it off. But that's how we human defenders have to be. We need to be tortoises that if you want to move to the next step, we need to take the risk to bring our head out. And that's the appeal I want to give it to all of you, that if we work together, I think that's good. That's going to be the most easiest thing to do as support and unity.
It was a very good session, hearing all the speakers about human rights. But my question is, how many people are aware of human rights? It is a duty of each one of us to give awareness to the people, to be a social activist and to uphold the human rights, because today we lack awareness. Many of the areas we go, especially during this COVID era, people are falling in severe depression. As you know, sir, 3 days back, Kandivali family committed suicide. It is because of the financial crisis. Where are we going to help them? How are we going to help them? So it is our responsibility to be part and parcel of this human rights awareness, each and everybody. That's my question.
Thank you, Shibu, for your observations. And I would urge you, it begins with you. It begins with me. It begins with each other.
Yes.
Simple, ordinary things, do the extraordinary way can make all the difference. You know,
Yes.
even Mother Teresa would always say it, that I've touched this person, and that is the transformation in the life of me and that person. So it's important, Shivu. You're absolutely right. Let us all individually first take our responsibility, and then collectively we can join together. Okay?
Join. Yeah, that we have to spread the awareness.
Sure, sure. Thank you. Yes, can we have the vote of thanks?
Yeah, thank you, Dolphy. On behalf of Sabha and College of Social Work, I would like to thank each and every one of you participating in this seminar and making it worth a while. Thank you, Dr. Vaishali Patil, down to Sajid Seller, and Gopal. Mr. Gopal has just left. Greta, thanks for setting the tone, and we got the basics of human rights, and then we went on Vaishali Patil, where we got to know the tribals and the work that's done, and how we take up issues on the next level. Then we also thank Mr. Sitaram Shelar for saying how we have solved water issues in our city of Mumbai. We thank Dolphy for moderating the session. It was very good, lively examples like tortoise and such. We thank also Dr. Advocate Raphael for being there, and all Robert D'Souza, Vice Chairman, and Dr. Maria, our Delegate Councillor, for being there with us and in this session. Thanks all students of College of Social Work and the other members of Bombay Dalit Sabha and others who could make time for this session. We hope it has been enriching for you, and that we can take this up in our local communities. That's what I think the message should go out, that we should try and see how much we can be sensitive to others, especially, I suppose. That's the main takeaway from all our speakers, that they have been sensitive to the needs of others in our locality and respond, just like our religions that we follow would teach us to go out, and when we respond, that's when I think we can connect to each other and be more of ourselves. Thank you, each and every one of you. Thank you.